and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, the show where Sean and I watch every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order. I am Tennille.
And I'm Sean, and today we are looking at the 1973 Disney's Robin Hood. I think you started a little too low for your range.
Yeah, I can't whistle that low, but...
I can't whistle at all.
That's true. I love this movie. I love this movie.
Alright, right here off the bat, I'm just going to apologize real quick. We are still getting
a little sick.
Getting over our sickness, so I'm going to try my best to edit out any coughing or anything we do, but it might still happen, just letting you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love this movie.
This is a fun time.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness, I forgot how incredibly chill this film is.
Okay, you know how in The Princess Bride, a grandpa is reading the story of The Princess Bride to his grandson?
Yep.
That's what this movie feels like. It feels like I'm wrapped up in a nice warm blanket and my grandpa is telling me a fun story.
Your grandpa is a rooster.
Yeah.
And he's telling you the story of Robin Hood.
Not even necessarily like any character in the films. It's just like this movie feels like not my grandpa in particular, but a grandpa figure that I can aspire to be sat me down and read me a bedtime story, patted me on the head, and said, you know...
Get better.
Get better, kiddo. It's like, it's not a perfect film. And this is actually a movie that, like, I've gone back, like, as a kid, I enjoyed it. It wasn't ever a favorite of mine.
Mm-hmm.
When I got older, I was like, oh, Robin Hood's pretty bad. You know, like, you go through that phase where you're like, oh, you know... So a lot of these like dark age Disney films aren't that good. And now I'm at a point where I'm just like, I just appreciate everything that this movie does correct, that I can forgive its flaws. Like, I think the good outweighs the bad. Whereas, like, when we were talking about the Aristocats, you know, that's one where my feelings have changed on that film, too, where... You know, I used to really like it as a kid, and it kind of stayed that way, but, like, more recent viewings of it, I'm just kind of like, you know, there's just not a whole lot going on in this movie that I can really latch onto. Like, it's still a good movie, but, like, Robin Hood has so much more going for it, in my opinion. And that opinion might change going down the road, but as of right now... I love this movie.
All right, I must say, my personal experience with this film is, this is one of those Disney films that my family did not own. So I really only got to see it when I went to my godparents' house, which was like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 times
a year or something like that.
At most.
And you didn't necessarily watch it every time you were there.
No, but I will say... If we were going to watch one of their Disney films, it was generally going to be this one because their children are all wimps and did not like anything even remotely scary. So the other film that I always wanted to watch, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, was straight out.
Oh, jeez. Oh, wow, yeah, so, yeah, I guess Robin Hood would definitely be,
more likely.
Yeah.
And even then, my god siblings were like, I don't know about this.
Prince
that
John,
lion's
too scary.
They're gonna chop off his head.
Chop off his head? Oh, yeah, I guess there is a moment.
I sentence you
to sudden and immediate death.
I
Okay, so how have you felt about this movie over the years, then?
I guess back then I was like, I don't know, it's fine.
It's something to watch.
It's something to watch. It's charming,
Yeah.
I guess. It's definitely not one of my favorite Disney films. I don't really have anything bad to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't watch it for like 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Seriously, like this is one of those movies I haven't really watched a whole lot
Mm-hmm.
in the intervening time. And overall, I just kind of remembered it as it was fine. I thought it was fine. It wasn't like spectacular, but it was enjoyable enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then we watched it for this, and I really enjoyed this film.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Mm-hmm. I think when you are not expecting much from this film is like the best way to go into it. You know?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going into it expecting,
To be wowed.
you know, Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin. Like if you're expecting like that, you're gonna be like, oh, well, this is kind of disappointing, you know, in comparison. But if you go into it after like the last few Disney films we've watched,
Yeah.
it's like, oh man, this is a breath of fresh air.
Yes. You can tell that the people making this film were just super chill.
Like super comfortable with telling stories.
Yes, they're like, we know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just gonna do it, and we're gonna enjoy doing it. Hopefully, I don't know the backstory behind, like...
We'll get to that.
Well, I don't know how all of that went, but what they portrayed on film makes it seem like, no, we enjoyed ourselves. I mean, obviously, a lot of people probably already know this, but there was a lot of, like, budget cutting and...
and all that at Disney at the moment.
reuse of animation to, quote-unquote,
Save time.
save time and money. Spoilers, it didn't.
We'll get to that
But we'll
too.
get to that stuff. But
just
other
more-
than those things, they had fun.
Yeah, and we're not even going to go into a plot summary for this one.
I mean, I can do it real fast. I have
Okay.
4 sentences here.
Okay.
Robin Hood, as you might expect, steals from the prince and the rich in general. There's an archery tournament to capture Robin Hood because he's this nefarious dude. He is sentenced to death because, of course, he gets captured because he's the best archer. But he escapes with everyone else and they live in the woods for a bit. Then taxes get really bad, everyone goes to jail, and so there's a jailbreak, and they steal all the money and burn down the castle, and then the king returns and puts Prince John in his place, happily ever after.
Yeah, and Robin Hood and Maid Marian get married.
It's the pretty basic Robin Hood story with some variations, of course. Everyone is animals, obviously.
In case you weren't aware, like Robin Hood's a fox, Prince John is a lion, the Sheriff of Nottingham is a wolf, Little John is a bear.
You know, the usual.
The usual. The usual, as if Robin Hood's always told this way.
Well, yeah.
The only version of Robin Hood you've seen. You're about to be like, don't call me out like that?
I've also seen, like, I want to say the 90s one.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember if it was the 90s one.
There was one in the 90s, I think. I think I've seen that one, too. And I've seen Men in Tights.
Is the 90s one where, like, the dude threatens to cut his heart out with a spoon or something?
Don't ask me. I don't remember. It's been too long since I've seen it.
Okay, I believe it. Anyways, yeah.
Anyway, going back to this one, I love the character designs. Making them all animals is a very Disney thing to do, and I really love it. We haven't seen animal designs like this since Song of the South.
Yeah, something like that.
And so,
Like the anthropomorphic.
yeah, animals. And they're so good. They're so charming. Like, you just... They exude personality. Like, every moment they're on screen, there's fun little, like, animation things that they do with the animals. I love Sir Hiss crossing his body to be, like, crossed arms so he can, like, sulk. Mm-hmm. It's so clever! The character animation is just so good.
I love this.
I do want to say, though, about the story. it's not an exceptional story, but it is a very, like, tightly told story. The movie's only 88 minutes long, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
And, like, every scene leads into the next scene.
Yes.
Like, you meet this character, okay, and now it goes into this scene with that character, and they meet this character, so then it goes into a scene with that character. And it introduced, like, a pretty large cast in a short amount of time. Because it's just like, boom, 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 boom. And it doesn't feel rushed.
All the fluff.
Yeah, it doesn't feel rushed. In fact, it feels like a very, like, slow, laid-back story. But, again, it's like, it's told so precisely and so tightly. Like, it's been rehearsed a million times, and everybody's just very comfortable with their roles.
Yeah, and, like, going off of that, the voice acting in this film is so chill. Like, if you're used to like modern voice acting in animated films, go back and like just really pay attention to the voice acting in this film, and it'll probably shock you how good it is in this movie. Because I think one really good way to look at this voice acting is the fact that they just they obviously have lines that they're reading, but they're just
living the characters.
They're living the characters and reading them in like a very realistic, I keep saying casual, but like a very casual, realistic way as compared to like nowadays where everyone's trying to, this is me and I am reading my lines.
From a script, yeah.
Because I am well-known actor and I'm not actually a voice actor first and foremost, so I don't really get the difference of what I'm supposed to be doing here.
I'm not living as the character, I'm playing me as an animated character. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
But no, like, go back and listen to this and, like, listen to Prince John, and Prince John just, like, milks the scenery.
Oh my god, I did not remember Prince John being this enjoyable.
Uh-huh.
Like, holy crap, this guy.
There's just so many times where he's like, go.
Hissing you.
Like,
slithering snake.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that like, nowadays, they'd be like, oh, well, let's cut that stuff because, like, we've already got this shot planned. We want you to do it like the shot's planned. But this feels just, like, so natural. And we keep coming back to that word, but, like, it just does. It's so, like, professionally casual.
Okay. Now that we're, like, watching these movies in order, it makes me think that they did not come up with the idea for this by themselves.
Like Prince John?
Well, like,
being like
no,
this?
like the casual way of presenting all the characters and the voice acting in general. Because I am going to give Ralph Bakshi some credit here in the idea of just having people casually talk.
Oh,
And
you think that might have been an inspiration?
I'm wondering because, like, those movies did, or like his first movie did come out a year or two before this one, and so that would be enough time for people to have seen it. And they're like, well, that's a really big hit. We don't like the how like the subject matter and stuff, but the presentation of just people talking, we can try to do that, except with a budget.
Yeah. And I mean, this movie is a lot of scenes of characters casually talking to each other. And a lot of it's like exposition and stuff, but it's still so charming just because the characters are fun to be around. Like, how many times do Prince John, or not Prince John, but Robin Hood and Little John just, like, chat with each other about things, and there's like not an action scene or anything going along with it. They're just like
chilling out.
Yeah, they're just talking about the morality of what they do, or, you know, Robin Hood is pining after Maid Marian, and it's just like two bros talking.
Yeah. So again, I don't think they came up with that by themselves. I think it's more so they were trying to read the animated culture at the time.
It's
maybe
possible. I don't know how much, like, I think you might be onto something, but also it might just be one of those things that's a coincidence, because I think at this point in time,
films in general were doing this?
no, I just think at this point in time, the Disney guys were super comfortable with their craft, and so I don't think that they were necessarily looking at outside sources for inspiration.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, outside forces would still inspire them anyway, but I don't know that...
It was like a direct to Ralph Bakshi or anything, which is not what I'm saying. I think I think it's just sort of like a, well, let's try this out because other people are doing it. I bet we could do it in our own way, type of thing. I will say, of the voice acting, there is one character in particular that stands out like a sore thumb to me.
Okay.
I don't think you necessarily feel the same way, but Little John.
Phil Harris?
Phil Harris is just playing Phil Harris for like the third time in a row now.
Yeah.
Because he played Baloo, and then he also played O'Malley. He's just...
himself again.
He's himself again, and he's also a bear again, which gets a lot of very reused animation from Baloo. So... in that sense, he sticks out more so than any other character in this movie. I don't think he's bad by any means, but he's still very obviously himself.
Yeah, I feel like if you were able to... If you had somehow never seen Aristocats or The Jungle Book, and you only knew him from this role, like, it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
But because it is just so the exact same character in 3 movies back to back. It's
especially the 2 bear characters.
Yeah, especially.
O'Malley has a little bit more of a difference, but the 2 bears are nearly identical.
Yeah, because one is brown and one is gray.
Yeah.
Like, there's some slight character design changes, especially in his face. That's a little different between Little John and Baloo, and obviously he's wearing clothes, but it's it's pretty similar. I'll give you one there. Yeah. And that is going to be like the biggest flaw this movie has is the reuse of animation. Obviously at the time, like, this was experimental to see if this thing could work. They've reused animation in the past, but like not even half.
But can they do?
Yeah, like there's a whole scene in this movie that is just reused animation.
Yeah, it's a dance sequence. So they reuse animation from the Aristocats. They reuse animation from
The Jungle Book. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yes. A different scene in the Aristocats.
Yeah, I think those are the main 3 movies it takes scenes from. And
obviously, like, they redraw and put other characters on top of it, but they were seeing if they could just use those keyframes and frames of animation as, like, a base to work off of.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind is obviously an audience at the time of seeing this would never be able to tell.
Or probably would never be able to tell.
I mean, I'd be shocked.
Unless they went to the theaters and saw every Disney movie multiple times.
I'd be shocked because, like, you would have to just have, like, a very clear picture in your mind of what those dance sequences look like, especially for something like Snow White, where at that point...
so long ago?
So long ago, but, like, it gets re-released every few years. Yeah. So people would not have recognized the reuse of animation. That being said, there's still also a lot of reused animation from this movie in this movie.
Yeah, they reuse, like, everybody
Walk
has...
cycles,
everybody
run
has
cycles.
Yeah. Characters have a walk or run cycle, and they will use it ad nauseum.
There's a lot of times they just play animations backwards to get the correct, lip syncing that they need done. I especially noticed that in some scenes with the Sheriff of Nottingham that I hadn't noticed before.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, he gets played backwards several times. Like, he'll lean forward to say something, and then he'll lean back to say something else, and they play the animation backwards.
With, like, different timing, presumably.
Yeah, with slightly different timing. And I'm just like, oh, you can kind of tell because there's, like, a little hitch in the animation here.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I definitely missed that part, but yeah. A lot
of the background characters have like cheering animations that they use over and over again.
Like, it's obvious that the budget for this film was significantly smaller than other Disney films. That being said, I have no idea how it compares, like, its budget, how it compares to, like, other films that were coming out at the same time.
Gosh, now you got me at the one thing I forgot to look up. That being said, there are a few other things I need to, bring up. Let's just talk about some of the production. So, because we've touched on this a little bit, so we may as well get into it. So, like a lot of Disney films, this movie was kind of originally pitched in some way or another a long time ago, back when Walt was still alive. Disney wanted to do an adaptation of Reynald the Fox, which we've seen an adaptation of that from France, the stop-motion film in the 30s.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, Walt wanted to do an animated adaptation of it. But it just always got shelved because the big problem was they couldn't figure out how to make Reynald a likable character, because he's kind of like Robin Hood. He's very mischievous. He does a lot of bad things.
But he doesn't really get redeemed in his story.
Right. And so, like, that project was shelved, but, you know, always kind of sitting on the back burner. It kept getting, like, brought back to life every few years and then shelved again. And then, of course, we've already talked about this a little bit back in the Sword in the Stone review, but then there was Mark Davis's pitch for Chanticleer.
Right, and that had some, like, Fox characters in it as well, didn't it?
Yes, and the rooster.
Right, yes.
Yeah. So then when Sword in the Stone ended up getting made instead of Chanticleer got shelved. And then eventually the Reynald the Fox and Chanticleer ideas kind of got molded and put together into this Robin Hood idea. And so a lot of character designs and stuff from that came from Mark Davis's Chanticleer. And the biggest one that's easiest to see is Alan Adale, who plays a narrator character.
Yeah, he's the narrator, but also a minstrel bard rooster that is in the world as well.
And then on top of all that, this movie went through a lot of story drafts. Originally, Alan Adale and Friar Tuck were part of Robin Hood's Merry Men, but the Merry Men ended up getting cut completely, and it was just Robin Hood and Little John. And, you know, even if you have like a DVD of this movie, there's like a whole alternate ending that got scrapped, and there's a whole bunch of different, like, variations of the story at some points or another.
I believe it.
But it ended up going through so many of these revisions. That's why they ended up reusing so much animation, is because they started to run out of time and money.
To, like, animate everything. Yeah,
and so at the time, they thought it would be faster and cheaper to reuse animation. Which, highly recommend you go check out the Floyd Norman documentary.
Well, turns out hindsight is 20/20.
Oh, God.
There, that is the one and only time I'm making that joke.
Yeah, hindsight is 20/20 here in the year 2020. And reusing animation turned out to be a very laborious process, because you had to go down into the Walt Disney archives and
dig through
thousands of drawings, concept art, original animation roughs, cleanups, cells.
Find something that you actually thought would be usable and good. Because I'm sure they went through a lot of stuff. They're like, well, I bet we could reuse this bit. And then they look at it and they're like, well, no, I don't think that actually works as well as I thought it would.
Yeah.
So what if we tried to find this from that film over there? Search around for a long, long, long time.
But like I was saying, the Floyd Norman documentary really kind of covers this topic pretty well. Floyd Norman, for anybody who might not be familiar, is a black animator who worked at Disney at the time, and he specifically remembers this production of Robin Hood and how, you know, the reuse of animation was like in general, I should just say, Woolie Reitherman was the director on this film, and he seemed to just make a whole bunch of decisions that made the entire crew very unhappy. Because Woolie was the one who was really pushing for them to reuse animation, and everybody, like all the animators were just kind of like...
But why?
Yeah, but why? Like,
if I'm doing all this time drawing all this animation, but just redrawing something we've already done,
I might as well just
be drawing something new.
And not spending days down in the archives looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
On top of all that. Yeah. But in general, like, Woolie and the animators, like, had a ton of back and forth about, like, specific story beats they didn't like, character design changes. Robin Hood's character model is never really consistent in this movie. And I don't know that that's necessarily on Woolie, but it might be more so a Ken Anderson and Milt Kahl feuding a little bit here.
Were they the two lead animators of him?
No, Ken Anderson is our... Yeah, it is Ken Anderson, I'm pretty sure. I might have be saying the wrong person, but I believe this is correct. Take this with a little bit of grain of salt.
Also note that I'm the one editing this episode, so I have no way of double checking this.
Yeah, I mean, you could, but anyway, yeah, Ken Anderson was like a lead character designer, but you know, so is Milt Kahl, and he's the lead supervising animator for Robin. And there's a lot of back and forth throughout the movie of, like, does Robin have a big black nose or a small black nose? And, like, he keeps going back and forth from one to the other, scene to scene. So that's a fun thing to look out for if you rewatch this movie.
So one thing I noticed...
And, oh, yes. Go ahead.
Break up some of the background stuff.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
Is, like, Robin Hood himself, like, hearing what you had to say about him, makes more sense with the whole, if they were trying to originally make it an adaptation of the Trickster Fox dude. Because Robin Hood in this movie is a trickster more so than the signature thing that everybody knows about Robin Hood, which is the fact that he is a master archer.
Right, he, like, barely ever shoots a bow in this movie.
He shoots a bow maybe three times outside of the archery tournament. And those times that he shoots are to shoot something into a wall or something like that. He never, ever, ever uses his archery skill to, you know, shoot a person. Which... would be, you know, a thing you would use a lethal weapon for.
I mean, I think, obviously, they did not...
Well, yeah, of course they didn't want to do that, but, like, he never fought with the bow to, like, I don't know, shoot cleverly to shoot someone's sword out of their hand or anything like that. No. In fact, Robin Hood does more sword fighting in this movie than he does bullfighting.
Yeah.
Which is just hilarious. But I know why they want to do that, because, like, they don't want to show the main character trying to, like, you know, kill people or anything like that.
Yeah.
So they make him more of a prankster, and so he has a lot of various disguises that he uses instead.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like they definitely more so play up like he's a master of disguise.
Mm-hmm. Which is definitely not something that Robin Hood in his original lore is really known for.
Yeah.
But I think
the disguises are fun.
Yeah.
Like, I love the fortune tellers.
And then the bird he dresses up as is...
the stork, yeah.
Those are both great.
Well, and they're such good, like, character designs outside of being Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Like, they're great character designs by themselves, and then you just add the fact that this is another character playing a character, and it's fun. Anyway, to answer one of your previous questions, this movie had a budget of $5 million.
There you go.
$5 million. That is ridiculously cheap for an animated Disney film.
Indeed. I bet even adjusted for inflation, that was very small.
Yeah. The box office is $32 million, although that is probably a box office, like, over several years, like, you know, several re-releases.
Yeah.
You know?
I could see that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Another thing that Wooly did that was really unpopular was cut the Merry Men. It's like, everybody's like, you gotta have Robin Hood and his Merry Men. Like, that's the whole story. And Wooly's like, no, I want it to be a buddy film of Robin Hood and Little John.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of these things were, like, people having huge fights backstage. They might have been.
It's more of like a...
Everybody,
really?
Yeah, just everybody kind of like, why? In general, Wooly as a director did not seem to make a whole lot of friends. But, like, also, I wouldn't want to be in a director's shoes at Disney at this time.
No, that's fair.
Because,
that's
like,
fair.
Everybody would just be comparing you to Walt and, like, oh, like, Walt wouldn't have done this. Even though Walt, like, barely had a hand in animated films for a while, even before he died. Yeah. Like, yeah, that would be some rough shoes to fill. Going back to some of the character designs, though, and Ken Anderson. Ken Anderson was a lead character designer for this movie, and he really wanted to step away from some stereotyped animal to character designs.
Okay.
So, you know, like, King Richard's a lion. Duh. Robin Hood is a fox.
Uh-huh.
Duh. But one that he was really a stickler about, and he really didn't want it to be like this, is he designed the Sheriff of Nottingham originally to be a goat. And he was super, super angry when the Sheriff of Nottingham was turned into a wolf. He's just like, that's so stereotypical and blah, 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 blah. And I mean, he's not wrong, but also the Sheriff of Nottingham is a great design. Like,
honestly, when I see the Sheriff of Nottingham, I don't immediately think, oh, wolf!
Yeah,
it's, I don't know, he's a furry guy.
It's kind of like Pete,
yeah.
Where, you know, you don't realize he's a cat.
Now we're going to have people in the comments like, wait, Pete is a cat?
Pete's a cat!
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, you say Fox for Robin Hood is just like a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, before this movie came out, most people probably weren't associating Robin Hood with a fox. You know, I don't know why people would not think that Robin Hood would be
You know
fox.
what? Your sass aside, fair. But yeah, I love this movie. I think that's pretty much all to say about the production. It had a rough production, but the movie turned out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really well received when it first came out. Like, probably Disney's biggest success in quite a while. Probably since Jungle Book.
I believe that, because, like, we're here in the Dark Ages, and a lot of their other recent films just kind of haven't really hit
They do
hard.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, probably just because they're Disney movies.
Yeah.
Like, none of them are flops, but nobody's, like...
head over heels for
right.
any of their particular films or anything.
Mm-hmm. However, while it had really good reviews when it came out, it's definitely one of those films that's reviewed less positively as time has gone on.
Huh.
I think in the last few years, at least, to me, it feels like Robin Hood's kind of making a comeback into public consciousness as being a pretty fun movie. But also...
not necessarily because it was good, like, inherently good,
uh-huh.
but more of just like, yeah, I enjoy this movie. It was
It's
a fun niche
movie
film.
from my childhood type thing.
It made me a furry.
It made me a furry.
I don't know. I'm sure that was the awakening for some number of people.
A lot of kids in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I'm sure that in furry culture, like, this movie has a history all of its own.
Oh, absolutely, but I don't know.
I don't know that history, but I'm sure. I'd kind of be fascinated to learn the story there, but yeah. It started to review more poorly as years went on, and I think especially when the,
re-releases,
especially like on VHS.
and people could compare and contrast to the older films and be like, hey, wait
a second, this is reused animation. Yeah, and that was like a whole little, not mini scandal, but it was something that Disney had to like come up front and be like, yes, this is reused animation.
And some people find that horrible and like...
I mean, obviously it's something that wouldn't, like, it'd be frowned upon if Disney did it today.
Yeah.
But I think given the circumstances, nobody's really, like, nobody should be going, wow, Disney should pay for its crimes because of Robin Hood. Like, there's bigger fish to fry when it comes to Disney.
You'd hope, at least.
Yeah. Other things, just because I really like this movie that I want to point out that I really like, I love the soundtrack for this movie.
Oh, Oodalally, yes.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about the music, but the music in this movie's really good. It has, who plays Alan Adale? Roger Miller.
I love the opening piece. I love the piece immediately after it of Robin Hood and Little John walking through the forest.
Yeah.
That's great. I love the song, Not in Nottingham. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's the name of that song.
It is.
Okay, but Not in Nottingham is fantastic.
There have been I specifically remember sometimes as a kid watching this movie, that song actually brought a tear to my eye. Because it's a very moving song and a very powerful scene, and it's really short, but like if it catches you in the right, like off guard, in the right mood, like it hits home. It's good.
The love song that Robin and Marion have, I forget exists every time. In fact, it's already leaving my brain. I just want to mention that it's very forgettable because it immediately goes into the...
Oodalally. Or not Oodalally.
The
Phony King of England.
Yeah, the Phony King of England, which is also a fun song. Mm-hmm. Even though that is the song that has all the reused animation. The song itself is fantastic and fun. Yeah,
and the scene, like the characters putting on a little puppet show, like that's new stuff and that's fun. Mm-hmm. Again, I kind of want to touch on the character animation. Even though they reuse the walk cycles a lot, all the walk cycles have so much personality and character. Like, all these animals walk differently, and there's so many, like, background characters that have these cool walks. Like, the pig, and the rhinos, and the dog. Like, characters are just from, like, the archery tournament, and nowhere else. And, like, the archery tournament itself, like, you have everybody shooting the bow, and, like, you have the dog who has to, like, go and, like...
blow his hair
out of his eyes so that he can see where he's shooting. And just little stuff like that is so good. Mm-hmm. I love it. I also just love the... I don't think I've talked about this enough since 101 Dalmatians has come out, but I love the Xerox machine, and I love seeing all those sketchy lines.
You love sketch.
It's one thing that really makes this era of Disney films special to me, is that I love the look of these movies so much. The way the characters, you can see how their forms are still there, and you can see that rough animation. And then they've just got these backgrounds that fit perfectly with that. They're very organic and rough backgrounds that like kind of they fade at the edges, and it just brings your attention into the animation. The backgrounds just look like a perfect set for these characters.
It feels like an illustration from like a storybook come to life or something. Which, I mean, we'll be able to talk about more when we talk about Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's exactly
obviously
what it is.
that's what it is. Yeah.
But, like, that's something that they've been doing this whole time during this era, and it works so well for them.
Yeah, it's just, I love it. I love it to pieces.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up this episode. Obviously, if you haven't seen Robin Hood, you should probably watch it. At least once. It's a good time.
Been a long time since you've seen it, maybe now's a good time to watch it again, you know?
Pay attention to
the voice acting.
Yes.
And the character animation.
Especially, yeah. It's really good. Either way, that is going to be it for this episode. So join us back here next time as we are going back to Czechoslovakia, but it's not a stop motion film.
No.
No, instead we get an animated film from E.G. Trinka's studio.
Yes.
So it's not him himself, but it's a studio as far as I can tell. And it is Fantastic Planet. So I have no idea what that means.
I've heard about this movie, but I've never seen it.
Okay.
So
join us back here next time.
Yeah, see you then.
Every town has its ups and downs. Some towns ups,